Okay, and I'm not gonna repeat the entire comment, but just so it gets on microphone, and in case all of you didn't hear it, I'm gonna take everything you said and boil it down to, you're saying, we say we're diverse, are we really? We seem to be segregated. Sometimes when we recruit diversity, it doesn't always stay. How diverse are we really? So, question down here, the blue shirt with white collar. It actually went out to several groups that were younger groups, and it was actually a pretty good representation of age. I suspect we did not ask income. I just didn't want to ask income in this one. But I assume it skews professional. But it did have a very good, the age range was very typical for the community. So you're saying young people go to larger markets because not for any other reason, but that's where young people are. I heard an interesting segment on NPR a couple weeks ago where they were talking about retention of young people, and they made an interesting comment, and I think it's true. I did this, I know, when I got out of college, I went to New York City. I wanted to live and work in New York City. I said, this is kind of a fun thing to do. But so what they were saying was, not sure we can capture undergraduates because undergraduates want to go to the big cities, see what life is like, and at some point they say, okay, now I've discovered what life is like. I've got a career under my belt. I've done well. Now I might go back to graduate school. When I graduate from there, I want to settle down with a family, and that's when we can attract them. So it may be that just Rochester isn't the first place out of college if you're looking for adventure and to see the world.
But the fact is, and I don't remember the statistic, but it's close to 80% of people settle in the town where they went to school. And that's definitely, we're skewing lower in Rochester. And, am I the token, young guy on the panel?
Are you feeling like the token young guy?
And that's absolutely true.
It's got to be the haircut, I guess.
I think I beat even Todd on this one. I think you're exactly right that when faced with the question of, well, I'm leaving Rochester, where do I go? The answer is, well, where am I going to, see other people like me, and where am I going to experience some excitement? I think, though, that question doesn't get asked if there's a job. And I know that, I got the average age of my company is probably 27 or 28. I mean, these are, it's a young group of people. And every single one of them, until they had a job offer, was like, I got to get out of here. And once they had a job offer, they were like, do you believe I'm 28 years old and I own a 4-bedroom house? I mean, that's unbelievable. And they're calling up their friends in New York and Boston and saying, you got to come to town for the weekend because look at this. I'm grilling on the back deck and I'm a kid. So that job is a really, really, really critical aspect of things. Also, along those lines, I sort of want to get back to the diversity comment because I think you're right on the money. We're diverse in the stats and completely segregated. I won't ask everybody who lives on the east side to raise their hands. Okay, that's the way of the world in Rochester and in gatherings like this. But there's a diversity of thought too that you don't get in Rochester that you do get in these larger cities. And Rochester is, for better or for worse, and I think it is sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse, one of the most provincial places there is. I mean, we really are we want to keep it a secret. We're not really interested in going out into the world, etc. And when you're at that young age, you really do want to see some new things and see some exciting things. So I worry about the diversity. I worry about the access to things that are excellent, okay? Because we don't do everything the best possible way in Rochester, in spite of the incredible number of standing ovations at the Auditorium Center, and every show that comes to town, we give them a giant standing ovation. And being exposed to that excellence and exposed to that diversity of thought and exposed to that diversity of humanity is the thing that you look for when you don't have a job in Rochester and you say, where am I going to go? So that's something that's very important.
One quick point about young folks coming here. We were recruiting a young single woman who did come here, and we want to make sure she had a good transition. So I asked a couple of the younger people on the staff about housing, and they said, people in their 20s, and they said, you know, you got to be very careful in Rochester. Rochester really does not have very good landlords. That they don't treat tenants very well. And the two young people on the staff move in different circles. One's a spouse of an MBA student, just moved back, and the other one had worked at the Democrat and Chronicle for a couple of years, went out of town and came back. And they moved in a little bit different social circles. But both of them had exactly that experience among their friends. And they said if you were in the really big apartment buildings, tenants are treated well, but young tenants are not treated well, they said, in smaller buildings. And it just
That's
seemed to be a
interesting.
received wisdom. And if you were graduating from college and thinking about staying on, could be a factor.
Okay, let's take a couple more questions. Yes. So, does anyone want to address that? I know on one side, I worked for Element K. That's actually what brought me back. And I know for a while we were funded by outside venture capital, U.S. equity partners, Wasserstein Perella, and also Rustic Canyon out in Silicon Valley. But I don't know. Does anybody want to address the venture capital thing? Question? Or the question of entrepreneur? Yeah. So VCs say, or venture capitalists say, you've gotten to a certain size, you need to move to a market where you've got the infrastructure and the support. Yeah, that's a shame. Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. You've had your hand up for a while. It's hard to see with these lights early. So rich, abundant life. Well, thank you for your passion. Thank you for your passion. You know, one of the things you said I want to emphasize, I've worked with a couple of municipalities, not this one, but one of the interesting things about municipalities is, I'm working with one down in Florida right now. What's the geographic boundary? Is it the city? What if there are two cities that are part of the same metro area? Is it both cities? Is it the county? And then you have the question of, do you work with the economic development folks, or do you work with the people that are responsible for tourism, or the because they all have different responsibilities, they all have different objectives. So it's like, as they say in strategy, it's like herding cats. When you're trying to position a municipality, there's just, and it's not that everybody's out to get the other person. It's literally that they have different perspectives, they have different audiences, and they have different experiences. And so it's very difficult to say, what is that one thing that makes that all cohesive, that makes it all work together? So it's very difficult. Thank you. Okay, that concludes the questions. And what I'd like to do now is just thank each of the panelists, and that will be the end of our day. I'm giving each panelist three things: a Harvard Business School mug to go along with, I'm sure, all the other mugs that they have in their house. But to make it a little bit more palatable, in each mug is a gift certificate for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And just out of a little bit of shameless self-promotion, they get a signed copy of my book, Brand Aid. And so, maybe you can sell it on eBay and get close to the retail price, because it has a signature. But each of you get that, and thank you so much. And thank you for the audience and your participation and your interest in this subject. So a round of applause for the audience.